Venom, let there be carnage. You are a loser, Reggie.
I can actually do a pretty good Venom now I think about it. Venom, let there be carnage. Be looking forward to this. I fell among the group of people who really liked the first Venom movie. It made bank over 180 million at the box office. It didn't get like close, but it got within shouting difference of 900 million, which is impressive. This one's obviously not going to do that much simply because of the pandemic alone. And I've been hearing like the reviews out. If you like the first Venom, you'll like this. I've heard people who didn't like the movie too. It's already got a better critical rating by a long shot than the original Venom did. So as someone who liked the first Venom quite a bit, what did I think of this? There are things I loved about this movie, things I liked, and there's things I felt that could have been improved on. The dynamic with Venom and Tom Hardy is the star. And we get a lot more of Venom, like him and Venom just conversing, and I could just watch the entire movie of them being like just the odd couple duo in our apartment, just trying to make ends meet while eating brains, or chocolate. Because they actually explain the brain chocolate thing. They do. That's one of the things I love. They did explain certain things in the movie that you're like wondering, okay, why brains? Why is it because he's a predator? Is it like, no, there's a certain chemical, and this is straight from the comics, in brains and chocolate that Venom basically needs. And I like the fact that they just address those minor details. The whole idea that the symbiotes are a hive mind. I'm not gonna say too much past that. That's not prudent to the post-credit scene, but that is a line that is in the post-credit scene, and they address that. The whole idea of the symbiote reproduction thing, though, they're still not very clear on that, how that worked. Like they leave certain things out that you're like, wait, what? And yeah, without going into too much, there's actually a reason Cletus, is more against Eddie than, just having Carnage in him. They actually do say a reason. The only problem is the actual reason. I mean, you get the implication what the reason is just from the get, but there's a reason beyond that, and they don't really address it until later on. Like, a little late for that. We already got the fact he hated the guy, so yeah. And the movie was about 90 minutes, I think 97 when you factor in like credits and all that, and it does feel like the pacing. Honestly, this pacing felt rushed. It goes at a breakneck speed. Like seriously, you blink, you might actually miss something. That's how fast this movie's going. It does feel short. But with all that said, the effects works, I think, is actually a bit of an improvement on the first one. There's a lot more Venom and Eddie in this, a lot more Venom period in this. Woody Harrelson and Naomi Harris, I've heard a lot of people say natural born killers vibe. Yeah, that's pretty apt. Yeah, it's weird to say, like, they're both psychotic killers, but they love each other. And you can tell that, like, they love each other. Like, they were the only ones for each other, and they love each other. And you kind of find it a little sweet, despite the fact that it is horrifying, like, what the things they're doing. And Carnage is there, and he's kind of, with and not with them at the same time. I was curious about what they were going to do with Carnage, too, because just from the trailers, it made it seem like Carnage was just roaring monsters. And I'm like, okay, does Carnage have a separate personality, or is it like all Cletus? But no, without too much giving away, there is a separate personality. There is, just like Venom is technically separate from Eddie in terms of their personality in this universe, Carnage is separate from Cletus as well. And he has his own personality. It's not very fun compared to Venom, but it is its own personality. And the stuff they do with Carnage too. Hey man, they have a lot of fun Carnage. This is a PG-13, but they do get away with some stuff. You probably like they push the PG-13 a little bit. I don't know if they push it as hard as they could. Like just in the second one, Venom and Carnage eat people's heads, like they eat brains, and they do that several times. There's one guy that they do it to. I'm like, ooh, that sucks. But I think that's the one thing where yeah, it's great that it's all they do that, but the fact that you're doing it in PG-13s means you gotta leave a bit to the imagination, which works in some things. But Carnage, while developed, I get this argument, and I do understand the argument. I'm not saying it's a bad argument or even it's wrong. It's just my personal opinion that Carnage was made in a PG-13 format. He's not an R-rated character. Well, in a real-world scenario, the stuff he would doing would be seriously hard R. Like eating brains, messing people up. He breaks a woman's neck at one point in this movie. Like, Carnage, I think, in his conception, is an R-rated character bound to a PG-13 world. And I feel like, could this have gone with the R rating? Yeah, it could have. And it could have benefited, honestly. There's only one F-bomb. I'm not going to say where it is, but it is, I think it's well placed, personally. But yeah, I think they do the best they can. And I mean, to be fair, if what we saw happening to Venom in this movie physically, like in terms of damage he's taking in the fight with Carnage, was happening to Eddie himself, it might have earned it would certainly be pushing the PG-13 envelope then. But ultimately, no. Is it something that hinders the movie ultimately? Not really, but I do consider it a gripe. But that doesn't take away from the fact that, A, the fight with Carnage in Venom is far better than the fight. As much as I really like Venom, the fight with Riot in Venom at the end of the first one, that you could not see shit going on in that fight. Like, every now and then you see like a still image, you see a few motions, like, that's great, but I can't see shit because it's at night, one's black, one's silver gray. I can't see shit. Carnage being blood red, and in the finale, you see where the finale takes. That's not a spoiler. It takes place in the church. The fact that it is lit to some extent certainly helps. The red pops. It actually helps keep Venom a bit more pronounced in the background, foreground kind of thing. You know, you see Venom more. There is still some, because of the way the camera's got to edit and move and stuff like that, it's still visually a little messy here or there, but it's leagues better than the fight they have from the first Venom. Leagues better. Yeah, I mean, all the supporting cast is still fine. Michelle Williams, I can't remember the name of the guy who plays Dan. They're fine. They get a couple funny lines. They're really not important. Now, there is a character here who, if I'm not mistaken, turns into a character in the comic. I'm not going to say who it is. The detective is Detective McLaughlin, I believe it is. And he has a history with Shriek where she deafed him up. That's all you're going to get out of me from that. And I'm not going to say where it leaves off with him, but they do imply a character change to him later on. They imply that he is ultimately going to become someone. But if I remember who that character actually is, the implication they did at the end of the movie isn't who that character doesn't represent what that character turns into. So I'm wondering what the hell they're doing with that. I'll have to double check though what character that is to be sure I'm right about that. Because otherwise I'm like, how is this working now? Yeah, it's actually just, honestly, it's just a pretty funny movie too. There's a lot of jokes I thought that worked. I mean, there's a couple jokes that are a bit awkward. Venom has this scene at a rave, and you see it briefly in trailer, where he gives his speech, and it's a little awkward, not gonna lie, but it is kind of fun too. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I just had it's a good ride. It's a good ride. It's a solid movie, in my opinion. Is it rushed? Yes. Is it a little choppily edited too? Yeah. Could it have been longer? Oh yeah, I honestly think whatever's left on the cutting room floor, let's just assume there's like a half hour left on the cutting room floor. Let's just assume that. That would bump this from 90 minutes to a solid 2 hours. Honestly, maybe not the full 2 hours, but maybe take about 10 minutes of that. Whatever is on the cutting room floor, if there's actual scenes taken out. And maybe splice it. Because I think one of the problems is this doesn't, it feels it feels very rushed in its pacing, but it doesn't flow very well. It kind of feels like it's jumping scene to scene. It does feel a bit messy. Not as bad, but in a similar vein as the Suicide Squad, the original one. Kind of like that, but not as bad. The fact that it is shorter does help that too, because because Suicide Squad I think was around 2 hours, if I'm not mistaken, or close to it, a little over, a little above. So that I feel made the messiness of it a bit worse. Whereas with this, because it's shorter, it's over quicker, and therefore the ride is there. So yeah, I mean, I liked it. I do recommend it, especially if you're a fan of the first one. I have a feeling you'll like this one too. If you're not a fan, surprisingly, a lot of critics who weren't fans of the first one seem to be liking this one a lot more. The post-credit scene, not going to say much. It's been spoiled quite a bit, but apparently online. But if you can avoid it, great. All I can say is, yeah, it's pretty much kind of, without saying anything, whatever your first guess is going to be, it is probably what you think it is. But that doesn't take away from how awesome it ultimately is, and the ramifications of what it means. Especially going with certain characters. Let's leave it there. That is literally all I can say without being like too spoilerish. All I can say is I can't wait for our next, whenever we meet Venom again and Tom Hardy. I don't know what this one's made on. The original one's made on 100 million. This one might be made on the same amount. Budget-wise, what would the budget be on this? They've been doing really good lately at keeping the marketing budgets low because I think of COVID. I think that's a big thing, and they're learning the benefits of that. My guess, let's just assume it's the same budget, which it looks about the same in terms of what we got. Plus, being shorter probably helped it. But my guess is the marketing budget probably isn't actually too large on there. We had two solid trailers, plus some TV spots. My guess is we're looking at maybe about 50 million. Roughly. This is not a $100 million marketing budget. I could guarantee you that. Almost guarantee. I'd put $5 in saying it's not $100 million. My estimate is, until I hear something different, is that it's a $50 million marketing budget against probably like anywhere from probably like an $80 to $120 million budget, but I won't know the budget until I look that up later. So anyway, that is my thoughts on Venom versus Carnage. You're gonna be Carnage. No, it's not as bad as it was in that one. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, who wants to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. I've got Who Will Win tomorrow and Adam's Family too. Look forward to that because I actually did enjoy the first one. I wish Mark could join me for that, but he works. He's too busy most days to be joining me. Anyway, I digress. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you folks later.